As we gather this day, we have four very distinct texts from Amos and the Psalms, from the letter to Timothy, and from Luke. They all have something to say to us, and all of them are rooted very deeply in the sense of liberation. Now, there has been a lot of conversation recently within our national sphere around this words of liberation theology. There is a commentator who has said that anyone who adheres to this then carries a kind of perversion of Christianity. Well, I hope that those people who are so worried about this perversion of Christianity are in their seats or their pews this morning, because there is nothing more incredible than these texts that call us to accountability, that call us to step into living in a new and a profound way. However, when I use the word liberation, I am not just referring to the poor, the widow, the outcast. I am also referring to those who have much. Those who live in their fine purple robes, perhaps in their sunglasses with their flashy wallets and lots of money. We are talking about what it means for liberation, for each and every person. Breaking down the way that things have been or are, and proclaiming a new way of living, of being. Now, this is not an easy task. If you are like me, when you hear the first words this morning from Amos, there is a sense of comfort initially. Imagine the good life. What does it mean and what does it look like for us? Isn't that something we aspire to? To be able to have free time in which we might lounge. Perhaps on our couch watching a little TV, perhaps lounging on a chair at the lake and basking in the summer or fall sun rays. Isn't there something wonderful about having, if not a bowl, at least maybe a glass of wine to relax, to unwind? To have the money to take care of yourself and to take care of your family. Isn't that an incredible gift and a wonderful thing to which we aspire? And yet, Amos is setting that up as the challenge today. What we look to as the good life isn't all that if. And he uses the word but here. For those of you who have the good life, but don't pay attention to those who are in need. That becomes the significant clause. That you can build up all of these things, you can inform and live this incredible life, but if you forget those who are in need, then your life, the existence you have known, is going to slip away. Here he is talking very candidly about being sent into exile in the face of the military powers that surround them. But it becomes this incredible social commentary, asking them to rethink the way that they are living at the expense of those who do not have. Those who are out in the street, struggling to make ends meet, working without a living wage. Now, this refrain is echoed in the psalm. It is brought to light again in Timothy, and then we get to this parable. This parable that Jesus shares with the Pharisees, those who are called the lovers of money. He talks to them about this rich man. Again, a good life right there. But there is this man, Lazarus, who in the Greek has been thrown or put at the gate. Sores on his body that even the dogs come and lick. And this rich man ignores him. So when they die, this rich man ends up in Hades, this place of torment and fire. Lazarus rests in the bosom of Abraham. Now I have to admit, we as Lutherans tend to struggle with this parable significantly. If we talk about God's grace and God's love and that being the saving factor, then what happens when it all becomes centered on works in the afterlife, or what this vision of salvation might look like? What happens when it is influenced or informed by what we do in our lives? I invite us to hold that in our mind, but to continue on with this parable. Because what becomes significant is that this rich man calls out to Father Abraham, first asking for some water. Now, we have Lazarus, who had a pretty rough life to begin with, finally is living in the bosom with Father Abraham. And then the rich man wants him to come and bring him some water. He still hasn't quite gotten it or figured out that this man isn't to be treated like some lower caste slave or servant, like a nobody. He still hasn't quite gotten it. And Father Abraham responds saying, wait a second, don't you see there's this chasm set between us? And don't you realize you lived this incredible life without thinking about it? This man, he had a rough go of it. Now he gets to live in some sense of promise of new life. So he's not going to come and give you a little bit of water. Now the rich man finally thinks of someone other than himself. He thinks of his 5 brothers who are left on earth. But again, he doesn't quite get it with Lazarus. Now he wants Lazarus to go and give them this message, that they might get it. Go and tell my brothers that they won't come into this time of agony or torment. He still doesn't quite get it. Lazarus is still that nobody who is there for his purposes. This time, at least, he is expanding his horizon and thinking of someone beyond himself. But it's that ongoing challenge of proclaiming a liberation to someone who has had it all. The good life. Many would say that the reality today for us socially and politically is not so much about who has what, but this sense of power. That there is a sense of entitlement and what I deserve.